The box on the doorstep, it was a quiet night in Palo Alto. The kind of night where everything feels still, like the world is holding its breath. Sundar Pichai sat at his desk, the soft glow of his laptop lighting up his tired face. The house was silent except for the ticking of a small clock on the wall. He had just finished replying to emails, the weight of another long day still pressing on his shoulders. Suddenly, a sound broke the silence. A soft knock. Not on the front door. Not from the hallway, but from the back porch. It was midnight. He paused. Maybe it was the wind. But then it came again. One knock. Two. Three. Steady. Deliberate. He stood up, unsure whether he was being foolish or cautious. The hallway lights flickered slightly as he walked toward the sound. When he reached the back door, he noticed something that sent a small chill through his spine. There was a package on the doorstep. No return address. No markings. Just a plain brown box. He bent down and touched it. It was warm. His hands hesitated on the edges. The night was cold, yet the box felt like it had been. Sitting in the sun, confused but curious, Sundar carried it into the kitchen. He placed it gently on the table and sat in front of it for a long time. Should he open it? He remembered a quote his mother used to say in Hindi, "Never ignore a whisper from the unknown. It may carry a truth you've forgotten." He reached for a kitchen knife and carefully sliced through the tape. The cardboard peeled back with an eerie slowness. Inside, there was only one item. A small velvet pouch. Sundar opened the pouch and poured its contents onto the table. A single silver key. And a note. The handwriting was shaky, almost like it had been written in fear. "You have forgotten where you came from. This will take you back, but only if you're ready." Sundar stared at the note. His heart beat faster, not with fear, but with something else, something that felt like memory. He hadn't been back to India in years. Not really. Not to the places that made him who he was. Not since he left for Stanford. Not since he rose through the world of tech and became someone everyone admired, but few truly knew. He looked again at the key. It had an old symbol on it. Something familiar. He suddenly felt dizzy. He leaned back in the chair, memories flashing behind his eyes. Dirt roads, the smell of spices, his mother's laughter, the sound of a train rolling by. It all rushed back in a wave of emotion so strong. He had to grip the table to stay grounded. What was happening? Then, without warning, the lights in the house flickered again. This time, they went out completely. Darkness. His phone buzzed. A message appeared. No name. No number. "You have 72 hours. Start where you ended." Sundar's hands trembled as he read the message again. His mind raced. What did it mean? Start where you ended. He thought back. The last time he felt truly lost was the day he left Chennai. His breath caught. Was this some kind of prank or something deeper? Suddenly, a loud sound echoed from the hallway. Footsteps. He wasn't alone. He grabbed the key and rushed to the living room, heart pounding in his chest. The room was empty. But on the floor near the front door, another note had appeared. This one was written in bold. Angry strokes. "Humility is not forgetting who you were. It's remembering who still waits for you." He stepped outside. The street was quiet. No sign of anyone. But there, parked across the road, was an old, beat-up auto. RIKKSHAW. In Palo Alto. His mouth went dry. He walked over, unsure what he would find. The driver wasn't there, but the ignition was on. The engine hummed softly, as if waiting. A piece of paper was taped to the windshield. "Get in." His fingers clutched the silver key tightly. He looked around once more. No police. Number. Neighbors. No media. Just him. A mysterious box and a ride that didn't belong. But something inside told him this was important. This wasn't just about him. This was about going back. About making something. Right. About remembering. He got in. The moment he sat down. The auto rickshaw lurched forward on its own, and the world around him began to blur. Palo Alto vanished. He was somewhere else. The air was hotter. The streets dustier. The sky wider. He knew this place, but it had changed, and so had he. His phone vibrated again. A new message blinked on the screen. One truth awaits. One lie will follow. Choose with your heart, not your pride. The auto rickshaw stopped. He stepped out and looked up. He was standing in front of his childhood home. Only it wasn't his home anymore. The doors were gone. The windows. Shattered. And painted in red letters on the front wall were 4 words. He left. We fell. A sharp pain gripped his chest. Then he heard it. A voice. Soft. Broken. Familiar. Is it really you? He turned slowly. And saw a woman standing there. Wrinkles lined her face. Her eyes were tired. Her hands trembled, but her voice was his past. It was someone he once loved. Someone he had left behind. But before he could say a word, she collapsed to the ground. Sundar ran to her, heart racing. Amma. Her eyes flickered open, just for a moment. They're coming. She whispered, "Don't let them take the key." And then she stopped breathing. He froze. A sound rose behind him. Footsteps. Many. This time. Coming fast. He looked down at the silver key in his hand. And for the first time in a long while, he was afraid. Asterisk shadows from the past street was no longer. Empty. Sundar stood frozen, still holding the lifeless body of the woman in his arms. Her face, though aged and worn, held traces of the warmth he once knew. It had been so long. Too long. Her final words echoed in his ears like a warning he couldn't fully understand. Don't let them take the key. The silver key, now damp from his shaking grip, glinted under the broken light of a flickering street lamp. Behind him, the footsteps grew louder, more distinct pairs of shoes scraping gravel, hurried breaths carried through the night, the metallic clink of something heavy. He looked up at the ruined shell of his childhood home, its walls no longer welcoming, its windows like empty eyes watching him. Painted in red, those bitter words stared back. He left. We fell. Sundar laid the woman's body gently on the ground, his hands trembling as he brushed a few strands of hair from her face. He didn't need to ask who she was. His heart already knew. She had once worked at their house, a kind soul who had brought him sweets when he was sick, who had whispered stories in his ear while he waited for his father to return home late at night. She had once told him, "One day you will go far, better, but never forget to come back." And he hadn't, not truly. Not until now. The footsteps were now just seconds away. Instinct took over. He stood up, gripped the key tightly, and darted behind the house. The alley was narrow, littered with broken bricks and old memories. The scent of damp earth and smoke clung to the air. As he ran, voices rang out behind him, sharp, commanding, unfamiliar. He has it. Don't let him escape. He didn't. Look back. His feet moved faster than his thoughts. The alley led to an open road that curved behind a row of abandoned shops. Their shutters rusted, signs faded from years of heat and rain. This wasn't the Chennai he remembered. This was a place twisted by time, forgotten by the people who once laughed and lived here. Sundar's chest burned from the sprint, but fear gave him wings. He ducked into an old tailor's shop, its door barely hanging on its hinges. Inside, everything was covered in dust thread rolls, half-finished garments, a mannequin with one arm missing. He crouched behind a counter, pressing his back against the wall, trying to steady his breathing. His shirt clung to his skin, soaked in sweat, his heart pounding so loudly he was sure it would give him away. The men passed outside. He counted 3 of them, maybe 4. Their voices were low, urgent. He has no idea what he's holding. The key must not reach the others. We need to stop him before sunrise. Their footsteps faded into the distance. Sundar didn't move for a long time. When he finally did, it was slow, cautious, every motion deliberate. He stepped out into the street again, now eerily quiet. The sky above was still dark, but a thin line of light touched the edge of the horizon. Dawn was coming. He checked his phone again. No signal, no Wi-Fi. But one new message blinked on the screen. Go to the school. The one with the broken bell. Trust only the boy who cannot speak. The words made no sense. And yet, he remembered. There was once a small school on the edge of the neighborhood where his father had taken him once. It had a bell tower, but the bell never rang. It had rusted into silence decades ago. He walked. The streets seemed to recognize him. Stray dogs didn't bark. Old signs swayed gently in the breeze, as if bowing in quiet recognition. The farther he walked, the deeper he sank into the past. Every corner held a ghost of laughter, of running feet, of whispered secrets under banyan trees. He saw a swing tied to a tree that hadn't moved in years. He had built it. Once, with ropes he stole from a construction site, and then he saw it. School dot, it was barely standing. Vines crept over its walls. One side of the roof had collapsed. The playground was swallowed by weeds, but the bell tower was still there, silent and proud. He walked up to the rusted gate. It opened with a loud groan dot inside. Rows of broken benches lay scattered. Sunlight crept through holes in the ceiling. On one wall, the alphabet was still painted, faded and chipped, but intact. And then he saw the boy dot small, thin, no older than 10. He stood near the blackboard, holding a wooden stick, drawing shapes in the dust on the floor. He didn't speak, just looked up, then pointed to Sundar's hand. Sundar held out the key. The boy nodded once. Then he turned and walked behind the blackboard, pushing aside a loose brick. Behind it was a small opening in the wall. Without saying a word, he motioned for Sundar to follow. They crawled through the narrow passage. It led into a dark basement room lit only by a lantern. Old books were stacked high against one wall. Photos covered another. Black and white photos. Some torn. Some scratched out. All of them unfamiliar. Except one dot, his dot, a photo of him as a child. Standing in front of this very school dot with a circle drawn around his face in red ink. He turned to the boy. "Who are you?" He whispered. The boy didn't answer. Instead, he picked up a piece of chalk and began writing on the floor. They erased. The others. "You are the last one who remembers." Sundar stared at the words. Who erased them? The boy wiped the chalk away and wrote again. Those who feared what remembering could do. He tried to understand. Was this about history? About something he was part of? Something he left behind? Then the boy stood up and walked to a drawer under the floor. He pulled it open, revealing an old map and a second key, this one made of wood. He handed it to Sundar. Then drew a symbol on the ground, a circle with 3 arrows pointing inward. Sundar had seen it before. On the silver key, on the message, on a book his father once kept hidden. This was bigger than him, bigger than tech, bigger than anything he had ever imagined. The boy pointed at the map. 3 locations were marked in red. One was here. One was across the sea, and one was already crossed out before he could ask another question. A loud crash shook the room. Someone had found them. The boy pushed Sundar toward the crawl space. He turned back once, but the boy was already wiping the floor clean, erasing everything. Sundar crawled out into the open. Just as men rushed through the school gate, he ran. This time he didn't stop. The map clutched in his hand. The second key in his pocket, the silver one still around his neck. He didn't know who to trust. He didn't know what was real, but he knew this. Someone wanted him to forget, and someone else had just died to help him remember. As he reached the edge of the neighborhood, a voice called out behind him. Low, urgent. Sundar. He turned. A man stepped out from the shadows. Tall, lean, with eyes that burned like they held fire. He wore a coat too heavy for the heat. In his hand was a phone, his own, somehow. The same one Sundar had been holding minutes ago. The man held it out. "You dropped this?" he said, voice calm. "Who are you?" Sundar asked, backing away. The man smiled faintly. "Someone who knows where the keys lead." Sundar felt his heart leap into his throat. And where did they lead? The man leaned closer to the truth, but only if you survive the next 48 hours. Then he dropped a small folded paper at Sundar's feet and vanished into the alley. Sundar unfolded the paper. On it was a sentence that made his blood run cold. "Your father tried to stop them, Now it's your turn. Asterisk, the map of Silenza. Paper trembled in Sundar's hand as he read the words again. Your father tried to... Now it's your turn. Everything around him slowed, like the world had tilted on its axis. The early morning light spilled across the narrow alley, golden and quiet, in stark contrast to the storm now roaring inside him. The man who had handed him the message had disappeared without a trace, as if the shadows had swallowed him whole. Sundar looked down at his phone, same scratches, same worn case, but now the screen was completely blank. No apps, no data. Only a black background, and a single icon shaped like the symbol he'd seen carved into the silver key. He tapped it. A screen lit up, but there was no signal. No GPS, only a rotating map, slowly zooming in on one marked location. It wasn't in India. It wasn't anywhere nearby. It was Sri Lanka. And beside it, blinking in red letters, 43 hours left. He leaned against the brick wall, eyes closed. What had his father been involved in? His father had always been a quiet man, thoughtful, serious, never angry, never loud. He had worked as an electrical engineer for the railways. At least that's what he had told everyone. But now Sundar wasn't sure. The memories came back like whispers, his father locking drawers with codes, disappearing for days without explanation, the night he sat by the radio for hours, writing notes in a language Sundar didn't understand. He remembered once, long ago, waking up at night to hear his father and mother arguing in low voices. It was the only time he ever heard them fight. They said it's gone too far, his father had whispered. But if I don't act now, it will never stop. They will come after you, his mother replied, her voice trembling. They already are. Sundar had been only 11. Now. Decades later, he finally understood those words weren't about work. They were warnings. They were sacrifices. He stood up straight and looked again at the folded paper. There was something else inside. Tucked between the folds was a worn photograph, black and white, edges torn. In it, his father stood beside 2 other men and a woman. All 4 of them were wearing badges with the same symbol, the same one that had been following Sundar since the box arrived. Under the photo, someone had written in faded pencil, Guardians of Memory Batch 7. Guardians. Was his father part of something secret? Something hidden beneath the world Sundar had always believed in? His thoughts were interrupted by the low rumble of an engine. The old auto rickshaw from Palo Alto turned the corner and stopped beside him. No driver again. Just the soft purring of the engine. Sundar walked toward it cautiously, unsure whether this was a rescue or another trap. Inside there was a letter. On the seat. It was written in the same trembling hand as the first note he had received, with the silver key. You were not chosen for who you became. You were chosen for what you forgot? Get in. Trust the key? Sundar had stopped trying to understand. Everything. The rules had changed. Logic had bent. He had no weapons, no allies, only instincts, and a fading memory of who he used to be. He climbed into the auto W. The moment he sat down. The vehicle began to move. Not on the road, but through it. The world outside shimmered like glass. Cracking under pressure, colors blurred, time twisted. One moment he was in Chennai. The next he was on a dirt road surrounded by dense forest. Tall palm trees leaned in as if listening. Birds called in distant languages. The air was thick with humidity, and the sky above was pale blue and endless. A small village came into view. Thatched roofs. Children playing with wheels and sticks. Women washing clothes by a river. A simpler world. But even here something felt off. People stopped what they were doing as the auto rickshaw passed, not in fear. In recognition that they knew him, the rickshaw stopped outside a stone building that looked like an abandoned temple. Overgrown vines crept across its roof. 2 columns stood, cracked at the entrance. Sundar stepped out slowly, clutching both keys in his pocket. An old man sat on the temple steps, eyes closed, humming softly. Sundar approached. I'm looking for answers, he said, voice almost breaking. The old man didn't open his eyes. Then you must be ready to lose what you think you know. My father, Sundar began, Was brave, the old man interrupted, but not careful. He hid the truth in 3 parts. 2 remain. 1 is lost. Sundar took out the silver key. The old man opened his eyes for the first time. They were clouded with age, but sharp with memory. You found the first, he said, quietly. Now you must carry what he couldn't. He pointed to the temple door. Inside, you'll see what he tried to protect. But be warned, not all memories want to be remembered. Sundar stepped through the doors. Inside. The air was cool, heavy. Stone walls lined with carvings told stories he didn't understand, stories of fire, exile, codes, and light. In the center of the room was a pedestal. On it sat a wooden box, carved with the same circular symbol. He placed the silver key into the slot. The box clicked open. Inside was a letter. Addressed to him. Beta. It began, if you're reading this, it means I failed. But if you're reading, yes, it also means you still have a chance. His father's handwriting was unmistakable, neat, steady, filled with quiet strength. I once believed that knowledge should be free. But I learned the hard way that some truths are like fire, they warm, but they can also burn. We uncovered something years ago, something ancient and powerful, buried beneath histories rewritten and voices silenced. We called ourselves the Guardians of Memory. Our mission was simple, to protect the stories the world wanted to erase. I hid part of the code in Sri Lanka, in the ruins where it all began. The second key will guide you there, but you won't be alone. Someone else is watching. Someone who believes that forgetting is safer than remembering. They wear suits now. They hold microphones and power. But their souls are shadows. Don't trust anyone who tells you to move on. Don't trust anyone who says the past doesn't matter. Because if they take the final memory, they will rewrite everything. Your mother knew. She stayed silent to protect you. But now, silence is no longer enough. Go to the Red Fort ruins. Find the last guardian. And whatever you do, don't give them the second key. The letter ended. Tears blurred Sundar's vision. He sat there for a long time, staring at the words. They weren't just instructions. They were a father's final gift. A truth handed down not through wealth, not through legacy, but through sacrifice. He stepped out of the temple. The second key in his hand. The old man was gone. So was the outer jaw. But standing in his place was someone else. A woman in her 30s. Strong, calm, familiar somehow. Your father told me you'd come. She said, "Who are you?" Sundar asked. "His last student," she replied. "And now yours." She handed him a photo, one he had never seen before. It was taken just 2 weeks before his father died. He stood beside her, smiling. Behind them was a large stone structure, ancient, overgrown. "That's where we go next," she said. "What's there?" Sundar asked. "The memory that could break the world." She whispered. Before Sundar could speak. They both turned at the sound of a car approaching. Black, silent, its windows tinted. 3 men stepped out, dressed in black, their eyes hidden. Behind dark glasses, they didn't speak, but one of them pointed at Sundar. And then, slowly, held up a third key. Not wooden, not silver, but blood red. Asterisk the red key. The blood red key gleamed in the sunlight like a wound that hadn't healed. Sundar stared at it, frozen in place, every nerve in his body on high alert. The 3 men stood still beside the black car, faces unreadable behind dark glasses, suits pressed, shoes polished. Everything about them looked ordinary, almost too ordinary. But there was something underneath, the way they moved, the way their eyes didn't blink, the way they carried the key like a final word. It wasn't just a warning. It was a message. They weren't chasing him anymore. They were waiting for him to surrender. The woman beside Sundar, the one who had called herself his father's student, tensed. Her hand moved subtly behind her back. Sundar realized she was carrying something. Not a weapon, a device. Small, square, wrapped in cloth. "We don't run," she said quietly, without looking at him. "We walk away like we belong. They won't act unless we show fear." He didn't feel brave. He didn't feel like he belonged, but He followed her lead. Big turned slowly and began walking down the hill back toward the village. Each step felt like a battle between instinct and will. His mind screamed for him to flee, to vanish into the trees, to throw away the keys and let someone else carry the burden. But something deeper, something older, kept him walking forward, Dot, as they passed the men. The one with the red key tilted his head slightly, as if in acknowledgement. Sundar didn't look back. He didn't have to. He felt the weight of those eyes long after they disappeared from view. They walked until the village fell behind them and the forest swallowed the path. Birds fluttered overhead. The wind whistled through the trees like a forgotten song. Only when the road curved and the world felt safe again did Sundar speak. What is the red key? The woman looked at him carefully. Her voice was low but steady. It's the failsafe. He frowned. Failsafe for what? She hesitated before answering. For the erasure. The word hung in the air like thunder. The erasure. Sundar had heard whispers of it in his father's letter. The guardians of memory, the truths hidden away, the danger of remembering. But this was something darker. What does that mean? He asked. They've been erasing people, Sundar. Not just killing them, erasing them. From history, from memory, from data. They found a way to strip entire legacies from existence. The red key activates the last protocol. If you or I go too far, if we get too close to the last memory, they use it. And everything we've done, everything we are, disappears. His mouth went dry. How is that even possible? Quantum scrubbing, she said, combined with narrative manipulation and a network of silent operatives embedded across data systems, education boards, archives. It's not magic, it's control. Sundar stopped walking. He needed a moment. The forest around them was alive, but inside, he felt a hollow opening up. He had spent his life building things, connecting people, believing in information, believing in knowledge. And now he was learning that even the truth had been redesigned. My father, he said, voice cracking. He tried to stop this. She nodded. He found out about the first erasures, activists, poets, historians. He traced the signal back to the source. He went further than any of us, but then he vanished. The day after, he sent me the last coordinates. Sundar looked at her. Why didn't you tell me all this before? She met his eyes. Because until this morning, I wasn't sure you were strong enough to handle it. He wanted to argue. He wanted to shout. But deep down, he knew she was right. They reached an abandoned jeep hidden under leaves near the river. She pulled away. The camouflage, checked the engine, then motioned for him to get in. Where are we going? He asked. The ruins, she replied. Your father marked them on the map you carry. It's where the first memory was hidden. The original. Original what? The first story they tried to erase. They drove for hours. The terrain shifted from forest to hills, from villages to winding mountain roads. The sky grew heavier with clouds. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled low. Sundar looked out at the world passing by, trying to hold on to something real, something unaltered. His mind returned to the boy in the school. To the silent message he wrote on the floor, you are the last one who remembers. Sundar hadn't understood it then, but now he was beginning to see it wasn't just about facts or events. It was about identity. About who we are when no one remembers us. About voices silenced not by death. But by deliberate forgetting the jeep finally stopped at the edge of a steep ravine below. Nestled between cliffs and jungle lay the ruins. Massive stones broken and scattered like puzzle pieces. Ancient steps. Swallowed by vines, columns half sunk into the earth. It looked like a forgotten temple, but older. Older than even history dared to record. They climbed down slowly, carefully. Sundar's feet slipped once on wet moss, but the woman caught him. They reached the base just as the rain began, a soft drizzle. Like the sky weeping gently inside the ruins, it was dark and cool. Carvings lined the walls, stories, symbols, warnings. One showed a man with a torch being chased by shadows. Another, showed a woman locking a scroll into a stone vault. Sundar's fingers brushed the wall. He felt the truth in the stone. It had been waiting. They found a sealed door near the rear of the structure. 2 keyholes. He took out the silver and wooden keys, but before he could insert them, the woman placed a hand on his shoulder. "Once we open this, there's no going back," she said. "The last memory is inside. But so is the last guardian, and they won't let us leave without a choice." He swallowed hard. What kind of choice? Whether to reveal the memory or destroy it forever. He looked at her, searching for some reassurance, some certainty. "How will we know what's right?" He asked. Her expression softened. "We won't. We'll just have to feel it." Sundar turned back to the door. Inserted both keys. Turned them. The door opened with a deep groan. Stone grinding against stone. Inside was a single room, circular, lined with mirrors. And in the center, an old projector, surrounded by 4 stone chairs. And sitting in one of them was a man. Frail, silent, eyes closed. The last guardian. His eyes opened slowly. He looked directly at Sundar. And whispered one word. Double quotes, "Welcome." Double quotes, "Sundar." Stepped forward, heart pounding. The guardian stood, leaning on a staff carved with symbols. "You carry the memory," he said. "But are you ready to see it?" Sundar nodded. The guardian turned on the projector. A flicker. Then light. On the wall. An image appeared. Not a photograph. Not a film. A memory. Alive. Moving. A memory of something hidden for decades. A crowd. A protest. A speech. A woman standing tall. Her voice clear. "We are not what they say we are. We are more. We remember. We resist." The crowd cheered. Then chaos. A flash of violence. Shouting. Uniforms. Cameras. Cut off. A final scream. Then silence. The memory faded. Sundar stood frozen. The woman from the memory. He recognized her. She was in the photograph with his father. She had disappeared when Sundar was just a child. No one had spoken of her again. Until now. The guardian looked at him. This was the first story they erased. Her voice. Her words. Her truth. They said she never existed. Sundar's voice trembled. Why? Because she spoke of unity, of memory, of power that belonged to people, not systems. And because she could not be controlled. The woman beside Sundar looked at him. "Now we ask you, do we reveal this memory to the world? Or do we bury it forever and protect the one still alive?" Sundar looked down at the silver key. Then at the wooden one. He felt the weight of every sacrifice. Every silence. Every erased name. "If we reveal it?" He asked. "What happens?" The guardian sighed. "They'll come after you. After all of us. The erasure will intensify. They will try to discredit, to dismantle. But people will remember again. Slowly, painfully, but they will." Sundar closed his eyes. He thought of his father. His mother. The woman who collapsed in his arms. The boy who could not speak. The girl in the memory who dared to say, "We are more." He opened his eyes, but before he could answer, a sharp sound cracked. Through the air. A gunshot. The guardian gasped. Stumbled. A red bloom spread across his chest. Someone had followed them. They were no longer alone. And the projector was still playing. Asterisk voices in the dust. Sound of the gunshot rang out like the crack of thunder splitting the sky, sharp and final. It echoed across the stone chamber and then vanished into silence, leaving behind a stillness so deep it felt like time itself had paused. Sundar stumbled backward, his eyes fixed on the guardian. The old man fell to his knees, the staff in his. Hand clattered to the ground, a hollow thud against the ancient floor. He gasped once, then twice, and blood spilled from the side of his mouth. Sundar rushed forward, hands trembling, catching him before his body slumped completely. The guardian's eyes fluttered open, barely. His voice was a whisper, breathless and thin. The memory. Must live. In you. Sundar tried to stop the bleeding with his bare hands, pressing against the wound. But it was too late. The blood was warm. Too warm? It soaked into Sundar's palms, into his skin, into his soul. Who did this? He shouted, voice raw, shaking. The woman, his father's student, stood behind him, motionless. Eyes scanning the shadows dot, and then they saw him dot a figure near the doorway. Gun still smoking. Face hidden beneath. A black hood. He didn't run. He didn't move. Just stood there, dot watching, dot waiting. Dot the woman pulled a small metal sphere from her jacket and threw it toward the figure. It hit the ground, rolled, and exploded in a burst of thick, blinding smoke. Sundar coughed, eyes burning, and when the mist cleared, the shooter was gone. Only the lingering smell of sulfur and gunpowder remained. The guardian was dead. His body lay still in Sundar's arms, eyes open, lips parted in eternal silence. The woman knelt beside him and gently closed the old man's eyes. She reached into the folds of his robe and pulled out a leather pouch stitched with the same symbol found on both keys. She handed it to Sundar. "This," she said, "is the memory stone." Sundar opened it. Inside was a round, smooth disc made of dark crystal. It pulsed faintly, like it held breath or thought. Etched along its edge were words in Sanskrit, words he couldn't read, but somehow understood. Truth speaks even when no one listens. What do we do now? Sundar asked. The woman looked at the projector, still flickering in the corner of the room, then at the dead guardian, and finally at the keys in Sundar's hand. "We finish what your father started." They buried the guardian beneath the temple ruins, beneath a banyan tree whose roots twisted through centuries of earth. They placed his staff above the grave, a silent marker to a man who carried stories when no one else dared to remember. At night, they lit a fire. Sundar sat beside it, staring into the flames, the memory stone warm in his hand. The woman sat across from him, silent for a long time. Then she began to speak. "His name was Kailash," she said. "The guardian. He wasn't always silent. He once taught history in a school that no longer exists. They erased his students. All of them. Every record. Every photograph. Only he remained. And only because he chose to disappear." Sundar looked up, grief etched deep into his face. Why would they go that far? Because the truth he told them could have changed the world, and they weren't ready for it. The fire crackled, small embers lifting into the air like spirits seeking the stars. Sundar reached into his pocket and pulled out the red key, the one the suited men had shown him, the failsafe. "Can this really erase people?" he asked Datta. Woman nodded, not instantly, but effectively. "It removes digital traces, wipes historical mentions, even forces public memory through media manipulation. It's not just a key, it's a weapon." "Why show it to me?" he asked. "Because they were warning you. If you go too far, they'll use it. And this time you'll be next." He stared at the red key dot, so much power, hidden in something so small that he thought of the people already lost. The silent boy, the woman who died in his arms, dot the friend in the photo, now just a blur in history dot, and then he thought of his father. What did he give up to protect the truth? Who had he once been before the world made him a shadow? The woman leaned forward, voice quiet. "There's one more location left." "Where?" Sundar asked Dot. She reached into her jacket and unfolded a map. "Not digital, real, hand-drawn, worn." She pointed to a remote spot in the mountains near the border. "This is where your father made his last transmission. It's also where the core archive is hidden, the central memory vault. Every erased truth, every hidden story stored in pieces. The memory stone you carry is a key, not a source. To unlock the rest, we have to go there." Sundar felt the world shift beneath him. If we reach it, what happens? You'll have a choice. Upload the memory to the global grid. Risk your life and the lives of others to bring back voices long silenced. Or destroy it. Save yourself. Let the past stay buried. He looked at the memory stone again. It pulsed gently, like it was breathing with him. "And what would you do?" he asked. She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she reached into her backpack and pulled out a photograph. Sundar took it. It was a girl, maybe 6, smiling, bright eyes. My sister, she said. They erased her after she published something about the truth of the protests. Said she died in an accident, but she didn't. I remember I held her hand when they dragged her away. Her voice cracked. They erased her from our school, from our town, from our lives. They even convinced our parents she never existed. But I remember, and I won't let them win. Sundar looked at her, really looked at her. The pain, the strength, the quiet war she carried in her every breath. He stood up, holding the keys, the map, and the memory stone. Then let's finish this. They traveled through the night, borrowed a truck from a friendly villager, paid with stories and promises, climbed winding roads that turned into gravel, then mud, then stone. The sky above was heavy with storm clouds, but they didn't care. They drove through it all. Finally, they reached a clearing, a stone building hidden beneath the earth, covered with moss and time. Its entrance was sealed, but familiar. Sundar stepped forward, holding the memory stone. The door pulsed, recognized. Dotted open, the dot inside was silence. Rows of memory stones, each glowing faintly, each waiting. A chamber built to preserve voices. Some had been cracked. Some were missing, but many still remained. On the far wall, a screen came to life. A question appeared. Do you wish to restore memory to the public grid? Yes. No. The woman stepped back. It has to be your choice. Sundar thought of his childhood. His family, his people, the ones erased. He looked down at the memory stone pulsing in his hand. He pressed yes. The chamber lit up. A hum filled the air. Each stone began to glow. Then dashed darkness. The screen shattered. The power died. A loud warning siren screamed through the underground vault. Something had triggered the fail-safe. The red key. He turned to the woman. She was staring at the entrance, where a new figure now stood. Tall. Familiar. Dressed in black, holding the red key in one hand. And a gun in the other. A cold smile spread across his face. You should have chosen silence. Asterisk. The light that remembers man in black stepped into the vault like he owned it. His boots echoed on the stone floor, each step deliberate, heavy with threat. The red key in his gloved hand glinted under the emergency lights still flickering across the ceiling. The gun in his other hand was pointed at Sundar without trembling, as if the man had made this decision a long time ago. And now, here they were at the end of a road paved with silence, sacrifice, and stories nearly forgotten. Sundar stood frozen. The memory stone pulsed in his hand. Almost afraid. The chamber had gone dark after he pressed yes, but the memory cores were still glowing faintly. Not strong, but not gone. Like they were trying to hold on, fighting against the closing grip of erasure. The woman beside Sundar shifted her weight slightly. Sundar knew she was calculating, planning, searching for a hope. But the man in black saw it too. Don't, he said, his voice smooth, calm, like poison in water. He moved, she dies. He pointed the gun at her. Now, give me the stone. Sundar looked at him. Really looked. There was something familiar in the way the man held his shoulders, in the curve of his jaw, in the sharp coldness of his gaze. Who are you? Sundar asked. The man smiled faintly. Someone who used to believe in truth. Someone who watched people die for it, and then realized it wasn't worth the cost. He stepped closer. You think you're a hero, Sundar. You're not. You're a loose thread, a reminder of things better left buried. Sundar didn't move. His palms were sweaty. His heart thudded painfully in his chest, but his voice didn't shake. You were one of them, weren't you? He said softly. You were a guardian. The man didn't answer. He didn't have to. His silence was its own confession. Why turn against them? Sundar asked. The man's expression hardened. Because we lost. Because the world doesn't want truth, Sundar. It wants comfort. Lies wrapped in flags. Silence sold as peace. Truth gets people killed. He raised the red key. This can end it. Clean. permanent. We erase this place, and all of you and the world keeps spinning. The woman stepped forward now, slowly. And what about your own story? She asked. What happens to you when the silence you protect swallows everything else? The man looked at her, his face twisted. For a moment, Sundar saw something crack in him, something tired, something haunted. And he whispered, I already don't exist. And he raised the red key to the control panel. The gun never left her. Sundar acted without thinking. His body moved before his fear could stop him. He threw the memory stone, not at the man, but at the wall behind him. The moment it hit, it shattered. And the chamber erupted in light, not from the computers. Not from the machine. From the walls. From the stones. From the stories. They came alive. Projections, images, voices. 1,000 memories burst into the room like fireflies, each one glowing, spinning, dancing through the vault. A girl reading poetry in a burned-down library. A teacher protecting a group of children during a riot. A man standing on a rooftop, filming the truth before he was taken. A woman holding her sister's hand in the middle of a protest. And then his father. Young. Standing in the ruins of a temple, holding a microphone. We do not fight because we hate. We fight because we remember. We remember who we were. We remember who we could be. Again, and they can erase our records, but they cannot erase our courage. The memories circled the man in black like ghosts.